You know, there's something kind of hypnotic about looking at a map and seeing all these neat little bodies of water organized in their proper places. But here's the thing, if you traveled back in time, you'd look at that same map and just start screaming because you wouldn't recognize a single body of water. The lakes you know would be absolutely dwarfed by their prehistoric cousins. We're talking about freshwater monsters so massive they'd swallow modern lakes like puddles. And what makes these lakes truly wild isn't just their size, it's what lived in them. The creatures that called these waters home were absolutely insane, and the ecosystems they inhabited were nothing short of mind-blowing in their diversity and sheer danger. So let's dive into the deep end and explore some of Earth's most epic aquatic systems and the absolutely bonkers animals that made them their homes. Picture this. You're standing in what's now the American West, somewhere around Nevada, Utah, or Eastern California. You see a massive expanse of water stretching as far as the eye can see. This was Lake Bonneville, and for thousands of years, it absolutely dominated the entire region. We're talking about a lake that covered roughly 20,000 square miles. To put that in perspective, that's bigger than Lake Tahoe combined with several other major lakes. The lake at its deepest was about 1,000 feet, creating an environment so massive and productive that it supported ecosystems unlike anything we see today. Lake Bonneville wasn't just an empty body of water. This thing was teeming with life. Bonneville cutthroat trout filled these waters in such abundance that dropping a fishing net basically anywhere would have hauled in enormous catches. You also had ancient lake sturgeon cruising around. These absolutely massive fish that could grow to be 12 feet long or more. A sturgeon that size in modern times is a trophy catch fishermen spend their whole lives hoping to land. Back in Lake Bonneville, they were just regular fauna. But the fish weren't the only predators hunting in these waters. Lake Bonneville also hosted ancient aquatic mammals that would make modern wildlife biologists lose their minds. Giant beavers, significantly larger than their modern cousins, building enormous dams that dominated entire sections of the lake, and lake otters reaching lengths that would dwarf modern otters. Apex predators of the shallow zones, hunting fish and smaller aquatic creatures with brutal efficiency. When you venture to the shorelines, things get even more chaotic because the lakes provided absolute abundance that attracted terrestrial predators constantly seeking easy meals. Dire wolves with jaws powerful enough to crush bone patrolled the shorelines. Saber-toothed cats with canines as long as daggers crouched in the reeds, waiting for distracted herbivores coming down to drink. Ground sloths the size of elephants waded into the shallows searching for aquatic vegetation. And camels, ancient horses and primitive relatives of modern bison, competed for access to the same freshwater sources. But here's where it gets wild. Around 14,500 years ago, Lake Bonneville's water got so full that it started spilling over at Red Rock Pass in Idaho. What happened next was absolutely apocalyptic for every creature living near that lake. The mega flood that erupted was so violent and so devastating that when it hit, it obliterated everything in its path. Fish were ripped from the water and carried miles inland. Salmon that were trying to spawn swept away before they could reproduce. The bears that had been standing in the shallows hunting for an easy meal, gone, obliterated. Bison that came down to drink, swept away like they weighed nothing. Mammoths and mastodons that wandered too close to the shore, their bodies were dragged miles from where they died and deposited in mass graves. Giant ground sloths, creatures the size of elephants, found themselves completely helpless against water moving at speeds between 45 to 90 miles per hour, with waves reaching heights over 800 feet. This wasn't a slow drowning. This was extinction on a catastrophic scale. Every creature that depended on Lake Bonneville was dead within weeks. The fossil record shows this clearly. You can find the remains of these animals mixed together in the scablands of Washington state, their bones broken and scattered, evidence of one of the most brutal extinction events in North American prehistory. Now, shift your perspective eastward to Central Asia. In what's now Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, there existed the Pliocene Lake Caspian, an absolute behemoth of a lake, and the creatures living in that water, they were absolutely nightmarish. Ancient pike species that would make modern pike look like minnows, freshwater sharks cruising through the depths hunting anything they could fit in their mouths, massive catfish reaching 8 or 9 feet in length with mouths that could unhinge to swallow prey whole. These weren't delicate creatures, these were brute force killers that dominated their niches through sheer size and appetite. But the real apex predators were the ichthyosaurs. Sleek marine reptiles that looked like dolphins, but were actually reptiles through and through. They could reach lengths of 30 feet or more, with jaws lined with teeth designed for grasping slippery prey. These things were apex predators that ate basically anything they could catch. And here's where extinction comes into the picture. When the connection to the seaway closed and these creatures got trapped in the lake, they faced a nightmare scenario. The water chemistry changed. Their prey became harder to find. They were cut off from the ocean they evolved to hunt in. They slowly starved to death. Then you had the crocodilians, ambush predators lying motionless on the bottom, waiting for unsuspecting fish or small mammals to come within striking distance. When they struck, it was with explosive violence that would end the prey animal's existence in mere seconds. A crocodile bite at full strength could exceed 3,700 pounds of force. Even a small croc could shatter bone and puncture organs. Around the shorelines, early ungulates came down to drink and risked encountering massive water snakes, reaching 15 feet with venom potent enough to drop animals multiple times their size. These snakes were strikers, injecting hemotoxins that destroyed tissue and caused prey to go into shock from blood loss and organ failure within minutes. The shorelines were also home to Creodont species, absolutely vicious predators built like hyenas with powerful jaws and bone-crushing teeth. They'd patrol the shorelines hunting smaller mammals and scavenging carcasses left by larger predators. When multiple Creodonts converged on a single kill, competition got brutal. They'd fight each other with teeth and claws, ripping into each other while trying to feed before competitors chased them off. This is what the fossil record shows us from these ancient lakes. Predator on predator violence, predator on prey violence, constant death. Now let's talk about Lake Megachad. About 6,000 years ago, there existed a lake covering 150,000 square miles. The life in that lake was absolutely insane. Massive populations of Nile perch, reaching 6 feet or more. A Nile perch that big is a prehistoric nightmare, with a mouth that can open wider than your head, and an appetite that matched its size. These things would hunt fish, smaller predators, and anything else foolish enough to be in the water. Around the shorelines, herbivores came to drink where things got absolutely chaotic. Buffalo, massive horned creatures weighing over a ton each, with horns that could gore a predator to death. Antelope species of various sizes from tiny rabbits to donkey-sized creatures. Water birds of every description competing for the same fish populations. Rock pythons reaching 15 feet or more could kill and eat entire antelope by constriction. A python that size could spend weeks digesting a single large herbivore. But here's where the extinction story gets really dark. Around 4,000 years ago, the African monsoon shifted, just enough to change precipitation patterns. The rivers stopped flowing as heavily. Over centuries, the lake slowly shrank, and that's when things got truly apocalyptic for Lake Megachad's creatures. The hippos had to compete more fiercely for territory. More territorial conflicts meant more deaths. The Nile perch couldn't find enough smaller fish. They started dying off from starvation. The crocodiles were forced into smaller and smaller areas, leading to increased predation and conflict. Massive predators packed into shrinking water zones meant massacres. Constant warfare between apex predators fighting over dwindling resources. Thanks for watching, and until next time on Extinct HQ, remember that the most dangerous thing to any creature isn't the predators, it's the water vanishing.